Okay, well, this is more of a part two, really, than a second video, because I didn't really finish my thoughts. The first point that I was making is that many worlds is unfalsifiable, and I don't think I did a great job of explaining that. There was a lot of stuttering and not having my thoughts clear, but maybe I'll have my head clear another day. But I'm going to move on. Secondly, I stated that it's very ornate, it's very florid. It takes the evidence of what we know, the problem, the universe, and it explains something about the universe by postulating an infinite number of universes. At least an infinite number of universes. I mean, I know it isn't actually more than an infinite number, but it is incredible. I think I have this upside down. No, maybe I don't. Hold on. I did not have it upside down. Good. So it takes this universe and postulates an infinite number of universes to explain it. This is on its face another bad idea. Again, these are not mathematical reasons or physics reasons to not believe in it, but they are very good reasons. A lot of ideas end up being complicated, fitting, ornate, and just flat out wrong because they were so massively inelegant. And I think what we're doing is we're reaching a stage of physics where we just don't know a lot, and we're formulating a lot. I think there's going to be a lot more ideas that come out of physics in the next 100 or 200 years than the many worlds theory. And this is just one of the sort of early attempts to grasp what we really are just beginning to see, which is the foundations of the world, the reality that underlies everything. But my biggest reason for not believing in the many worlds theory is that I've just never been given a good reason to do so. Again, like my belief or lack of belief in God. Every time someone tries to explain to me why the mysteriousness of an electron demands that there be an infinite number of universes, I just can't help but imagine that it's at least as likely that we just don't understand what an electron is doing, and it's entirely determinate. The electron is in no way indeterminate, and we don't determine it when we observe it. It's just that our tools for measuring the electron are so brutish, are so coarse, so large compared to an electron. We're measuring electrons with electron-sized objects, usually electrons. Maybe we're not measuring them with electrons, but we're measuring them with things on their scale. If I measured a car by throwing cars at it, I might move that car that I'm trying to measure where it's at by throwing the car at it. This is the basic principle of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, that you can either know the location of an object, or you can know either know the location of an electron when you measure it, or you can know the vector of it. But not both, because you interfere with it so strongly when you measure it. Now, I think some people have taken this to mean that electrons are in principle subject to this law of uncertainty of measurement. But I've always taken it to mean that it's because of the way we're measuring the electron. If we could measure the electron with subquarkic, if there is ever such a thing, a string, if we could measure it with that, maybe the electron wouldn't be so mysterious, but we don't have the ability to harness that. So it might just be that, you never can truly understand the most basic form of matter because it's the most basic form of matter, and anything you use to measure it is going to be too coarse to give you reliable information. I feel like there's a lot of physical objects that if you had to interact with them on the same limited basis that physicists interact with electrons, and subatomic particles, and leptons, and mesons, and baryons, if we had to interact with those objects, if we had to interact with objects in our world that way, and we had no prior knowledge of them, I think we might, if we had the same skeptical attitude as a physicist, end up coming to the same conclusions. Physicists aren't very realist about most of the subatomic particles and forces they tend to see them as fields or want to see them as fields. And I think if you had to measure billiard balls by just using billiard balls, and you were blind in every other way, and you didn't know what a billiard ball did or operated or how it functioned, you might come to the same conclusion that it doesn't seem to have a location, but every now and then you stimulate it to have one. Because it's like, the best way to explain it, I guess, is to say, there's some joke about everybody goes into a room, a sociologist goes into a room and describes what he sees in there, and then a chemist and then a biologist, and they all describe it variously differently, but when the physicist goes into the room, he doesn't even describe it as an object. He just describes it as, like the side of the sphere that he saw, and this angle of a chair. He's not going to assume that anything exists on the other side. He's not going to assume that there's an object or that there's some substance to it or that there's any unity to these things. He just is going to assume exactly what is given in his observation verbatim. Inference is not in his vocabulary. But that's a skeptical attitude, and that, while that's appropriate, I believe, it doesn't make it comprehensive, and it also doesn't do anything to negate a realist approach to electrons.